The roots of Saarinen's arch reach back to his boyhood in the creatively charged environment of Cranbrook Art Academy outside of Detroit. In the early 30s, newspaper publisher George Booth and his wife Ellen Scripps Booth invited Finnish architect Eero Saarinen to be the Art Academy's first president and design its campus. Eelio's son Eero grew up there, at home in a world of design and art. Cranbrook's campus attracted many of the greatest creative minds of the mid-20th century, including sculptor Carl Milles, whose statues and fountains would later leave their own mark on St. Louis. The philosophy of Cranbrook made a deep impression on young Eero.
The integration of the arts, total integration of the arts, was critical to Cranbrook. That meant the integration of architecture, horticulture, the fine arts, painting, sculpture, as well as the decorative arts. They wanted to create an institution that would always provide training opportunities for artists dealing with contemporary art. Modern furniture, modern architecture, modern appliances, and mid-century modernism largely grew out of the work done at the Cranbrook Academy of Arts in the 1930s.
So the notion of a design that was both sculpture and architecture came naturally to Eero, who was determined to design a monument that could take its place among the great monuments of the world.
He wanted it to sort of exude permanence. So he looked at what makes a memorial great. Well, if you look at the Washington Monument, you've got an obelisk. So it's like the ancient Egyptians. If you look at the Jefferson Memorial, it's like a globe, it's a sphere. If you look at the Lincoln Memorial, it's a big cube. And so he started to think about an abstracted dome, and maybe that could be a tripod, an open tripod.
And he rendered this in pipe cleaners. And he decided this was too ungainly, so he removed one, coming up essentially with an arched form like this. At first, Eero came up with a quadrilateral section. In other words, if you were to cut the arch at any one point, rather than a triangle, which we have now, there was a quadrilateral section. So the inside rim would have been flat, just like the outside. And he took this idea to Carl Milles here at Cranbrook, and Milles was the one who said, no, Eero, you've got to make it more sculptural. The triangle is the only form you can have to make this work well.
Saarinen and his team kept reworking the concept. They briefly considered and rejected building it out of concrete or having it span the river. They made it taller and redesigned the shape. Early plans show the arch more as a parabola. Over time, it evolved into a catenary curve, the more graceful shape a chain assumes when held between 2 points. The judges made their decision in February of 1948, but mistakenly sent their congratulations to the more famous Saarinen, Eelio, who had submitted his own design. Father and son broke out the champagne. When, a few days later, the embarrassed panel announced that it was in fact the younger Saarinen who had won, they popped a second cork and toasted Eero and his gateway to the West. In 1961, Eero Saarinen died at the age of 51, his arch unbuilt, his vision intact. In the early 60s, they were young men, pouring concrete and shaping iron and steel hundreds of feet above the earth. Today, their memories are still clear and their perspectives unique.
I often think of the guys that built the arch in the same way I think that, maybe Stephen Ambrose looked at the World War II veterans that he interviewed, they're real modest guys that, we were just doing our job kind of thing. And yet they did an extraordinary thing. They may downplay it and say, well, I worked on, 20 bridges and 15 high steel buildings and, they go on, but then they pull out a scrapbook about the arch. They don't have a scrapbook on any of the other projects they worked on. Here's a scrapbook about the arch.
The arch is known as a phenomena. It's one of the great engineering feats, but when you compare it with things like the Panama Canal, going to the moon, it's really not that big a deal. We did what someone asked us to do, what we were supposed to do. We did our job.
Well, there were some real characters, I'll say that down there. I guess it took a special type, maybe, I don't know. It was like being in a fun house. If you was in there at that particular time, they had just a wire running down the ceiling, and about every 10 feet they just had a bare light bulb hanging on it, with about that much tail. And as the derrick would swing over the side, well, it would move and those lights would dance. Well, it would cast shadows all over. Nothing was level. The only place was level is if you stood on a step or a platform, but everything else was out of whack around you. You couldn't see the ground, so you didn't know where your orientation was screwed up.
Depending upon the time of the year, it would create an atmosphere in there where there would be fog. And you would have, from the top, like in the summertime, from the top to the bottom, you could have as much as 30 degrees difference in temperature. It would create an atmosphere in there where there would be fog.
In the wintertime, the big thing, the arch actually worked like a big flue or a chimney. The air would rush up the inside at a fast rate. And they had a big bulkhead down at the bottom with a big door that you could open and go in. But when somebody opened the door at the bottom, that air would rush up through the arch and out the top, before it was connected. And that was cold in the wintertime.
Memories are the best souvenirs you can have, and that's what we have.
And can't never forget that. It's something in my lifetime, and I don't care how old I'm going to get, but I will never forget it.
Well, I know my kids and grandkids say, "Oh, Daddy built that." It's a feat. You look back at it, it's a heck of a job.
It'll be here long after I'm gone. I've worked on bridges, buildings, towers. Just if it's ironwork, I've worked on. That arch is something you can back off and look at it and be proud of.
Yeah, not many people can build a national monument, I guess. Not that many of them.